She said it while folding jeans. No drama, no emotion, just a sentence, like crossing another task off a to-do list. And from that moment on, nothing was ordinary anymore. No more familiar dinners, no more routine touches. Even the silence between them began to sound different, like the final echo of something that had already gone. She thought he'd break, but he vanished, step by step, quietly, coldly. And by the time she realized it, it was too late. He was already on the other side, where pain turns into clarity, and regret sounds like the belated confessions of those who've already lost. There are no dramatic scenes here, just the quiet collapse of intimacy, when one person left long ago and the other is only just beginning to notice. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. She said it while folding jeans, calmly, casually. There was no dramatic pause, no raised voice. Just a sentence, spoken like she was jotting something off a to-do list. I think you'd be better without me. That was Penelope's line. Not posed as a question, not delivered with doubt. Just a simple, unwavering truth. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her match socks at the foot of the bed. She didn't glance up. Her tone was even, like she'd practiced that sentence in her head for weeks and had finally reached the moment to release it. I didn't reply right away. My eyes dropped to the grocery bag I'd brought in, and I set it down gently by the wall. Is that really what you want? I asked. She hesitated, but barely. Her hands kept moving, folding methodically. I'm not sure what I want, she said, her voice level. But I know it's not this. She passed me, laundry basket balanced in her arms, not slowing down. No look, no hesitation. Like we were roommates managing chores, not a couple watching everything fall apart. I trailed her into the hallway. We're not going to talk about it? I asked. She paused on the staircase, halfway up, and turned just enough to glance over her shoulder. There's nothing left to discuss, Miles, she said. I've felt this way for a long time. I just didn't know how to say it until now. I didn't follow her. I stayed planted under the dim hallway light, trying to piece together what had just cracked open. No shouting, no crying, just a hollow weight settling in my chest. She'd said what was true for her. That wasn't the hardest part. What stung the most was how easily it had come out, how far gone she already was. For her, this was just tying the final knot in something long unraveled. And me? I hadn't even noticed we were slipping toward the edge. The signs were there, in hindsight, not loud or dramatic. They crept in quietly, unnoticed. She used to send messages throughout the day, nothing big, just little things. How's your day? Want Thai tonight? One day, those messages just stopped. She said work had picked up, tight deadlines, non-stop meetings, new pressures. I didn't press her. Then she stopped waiting up. I'd come home from a long day, and the apartment would be dark. No dinner, no TV buzzing in the background, just her in bed, turned away, asleep, or pretending to be. One night over dinner, I finally brought it up. Penelope, is everything okay? She kept slicing into her salmon, eyes fixed on her plate. There's nothing wrong, Miles. I'm just tired. You've been tired for a while. That made her pause. She met my gaze, her face unreadable. And you've been checked out just as long, she said. Maybe we're both worn down. I didn't argue. I let the words hang there. After that, I made an effort. Cooked more, handled the errands. I even planned a weekend away by the lake, hoping it might spark something. She told me she couldn't go, too much work. But she spent the weekend out with people I'd never met. Said they were co-workers. I never saw proof. She came home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't recognize, with a smile that vanished the moment she walked through the door. It didn't feel like she was taking a break. It felt like she was redrawing the lines between us without saying so. One night, I leaned in to kiss her goodnight. She turned her face away. No words, just that. I sat up that night, alone in the living room, listening to the silence until well past midnight. She'd already started letting go. I just hadn't seen it. A week after that quiet, clinical confession over laundry, I found the first unmistakable sign. It was a Tuesday. She said she had dinner plans with a client, someone in town from Toronto. She left the house wearing a black blouse I hadn't seen in years and heels I didn't remember her owning. She left her wedding ring in the little dish by the sink. At 10:46 p.m., a message pinged on the iPad she'd left on the kitchen counter. She was still signed in. I didn't mean to look. It was just there. The sender was someone named Damien, a name I didn't recognize. The last message said, "Tonight was good. You always leave me wanting more. No emojis, no extra punctuation, just words. Clear, familiar, intimate." I tapped into the conversation. It went back weeks, some short replies, some playful exchanges, inside jokes I couldn't follow, plans that weren't spelled out, but didn't need to be. She came home just after midnight. I was still sitting at the kitchen table waiting. She looked surprised to see me, caught off guard, but not guilty. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said, eyes locked on hers. "How was dinner?" "Long," she replied, heading to the sink for water. "Who's Damien?" Her shoulders twitched, just slightly. Then she turned back, composed. "He's a co-worker. From Toronto." I stared at her. Didn't feel like just a co-worker. She held my gaze. "I don't know what you think you're accusing me of, Miles." I stood there, calm and composed. There was no anger in my tone. I'd gone through every word she'd sent. The room was thick with silence. She set her glass down with care, then crossed her arms tightly over her chest. "If you're imagining something physical happened, it didn't. That's not the part that haunts me." Her eyelids fluttered slowly. "Then what is it?" she asked. "Was it the attention? The thrill of being seen? You just stopped needing any of that. From me." She didn't protest. No denial, no apology. Her response was steady. "You don't get to play the victim. You walked away first." That's when everything fell into place. She didn't regret her actions, only that she'd been exposed. And how do you fix what someone doesn't even acknowledge is broken? After that night, I let it go. I didn't mention Damien again. I stopped looking for answers. Instead, I began to retreat, subtly but deliberately. I no longer swung by the store on my way home. I stopped tossing her laundry in with mine. Slowly, I let the idea of us come apart. The dishes stayed where they were. I left unopened mail piled on the counter. On our drives, silence replaced conversation. At first, she seemed unaware, or maybe she chalked it up to another lull, one of those quiet stretches couples hit now and then. But on day 5, she finally asked, "Did you forget the gas bill?" "No," I answered, eyes on my coffee. I covered my share. A week slipped by. She texted from work. "Did you drop off the dry cleaning?" I left it unread. That night, she stood in the hallway, arms folded like a shield. "Are you ignoring me?" she asked. I brushed past her. "No," I said. "Just letting you handle your own obligations." That did more damage than any shouting match ever could. The next morning, she did her makeup like she used to, hairstyled, red lipstick, dressed for someone. But that someone wasn't me. That evening, she told me she was grabbing drinks with Lara from HR. But while she was getting ready, her phone lit up, twice. Damien. I didn't say a word. When she left, I turned off the porch light and locked the door. Around midnight, she knocked. I answered slowly. She stood there, expecting a fight. "Forget your keys?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "You've been acting like such an asshole lately." I gave a slight shrug, picked it up from a master. She didn't respond, just walked past me like I was furniture. But I could feel it, the shift beneath her steps. She'd assumed I'd stay still while she wandered. But now the ground was moving and she had no idea what was coming. I waited, quietly setting the stage. A new bank account, a lease, my name only, movers scheduled. I kept my voice level, gave nothing away. Then I made the one call Penelope never saw coming. Her cousin Eva and I had always been cordial, not exactly close, but friendly enough. I remembered something she'd once said at a family barbecue, standing next to me by the grill. Penelope falls for fireworks but marries the match. Back then, it didn't mean much. Now, it made perfect sense. Eva picked up on the second ring. Miles? I need a small favor. No drama. She didn't even pause. 2 nights later, we met at a coffee shop. I showed her the screenshots, texts between Penelope and Damien, calendar notes that didn't match the stories I'd been told. Eva exhaled deeply. So it's true. She claims it never crossed a line, I said. Eva nodded thoughtfully. With Penelope, it usually starts slow. I looked her in the eye. I'm not here to turn this into sides. I just want her off balance. How? Just drop Damien's name sometime, casually. Don't press, just enough to make her wonder how you found out. Eva raised an eyebrow. You want to shake her up? She's gotten too confident, hasn't she? Exactly. She needs to feel uncertain. Eva gave a wry smile. Always this calm when you're executing a plan? I didn't smile back. This isn't vengeance. I'm just flipping the switch. Penelope started shifting within 48 hours. She got home earlier, asked what I felt like for dinner, sat closer on the couch, laughed too loudly at nothing. I said nothing, just watched. A few days later, she asked, "Do you think we're okay?" My voice was flat. You tell me. She didn't reply, but her eyes lingered on mine, searching. For the first time in months, she looked like someone who knew she was losing and realized I wasn't lifting a finger to stop it. That's when she began trying too hard. She started cooking real meals again. No more reheated takeout. Stocked the fridge with my favorite beer. Played old playlists while I showered. One night, she asked if I wanted to get away for the weekend. Just us. We should talk, she said. Reconnect. I told her I had work. On the weekend? She asked. Since when? Since I stopped being the only one trying to resuscitate this marriage, I replied, not even glancing up from my laptop. She never pleaded, but I caught the panic flare briefly in her eyes, like a candle's first flicker. By the following Tuesday, I had erased my presence from the shared computer, transferred every mutual account, and shut down the backup credit card. Everything was either under my name or no longer linked to her. She hadn't realized yet that the balance of our joint account had vanished. The bills? They were already under my control. The version of our life she thought still existed had dissolved quietly behind the scenes. That Saturday morning, she hovered near the counter while I made coffee. "Did you change the Netflix password?" she asked. "I did," I said simply. She waited, expecting more. I took a slow sip. "You said you needed space." A flicker of pain crossed her face before she masked it with a smile. "I didn't mean for it to go like this. I know exactly what you meant, Penelope. You just didn't think I'd follow through." That evening, she left her phone face up on the kitchen table, not checking it, even when it rang, pretending it didn't matter. I didn't bring it up. I didn't need to. I already knew. The next morning, she lingered in bed longer than usual, curled in one of my old t-shirts like it still carried weight. She waited for me to say something, a glance, a word, anything. I got dressed in silence. At the door, her voice stopped me. "Is this really how we end?" I turned to her, calm and clear. "It ended when you needed someone else just to feel seen." Then I walked out. She didn't come after me. That was Wednesday. She was at the office when I left for good. I packed up everything that belonged to me, clothes, paperwork, my laptop, loaded the car, and drove across the city. The key slid into the lock of the short-term place I'd already secured. Small, peaceful, mine. Back at the apartment, I left a letter on the kitchen counter. Penelope, you were right. You are better on your own. So am I. The bills are covered through the end of the month. Everything has been divided. The lease is in my name now. No more fighting. No more silence that feels like punishment. The keys are in the bowl near the door. Miles. I didn't stick around to see how she took it. I turned my phone off and let the day pass in quiet. That night, when I powered it back on, the screen lit up with missed calls. 3, then 5, and a message. Where are you? I didn't reply. She didn't reach out again the next day, or the one after that. But on Saturday, I got a text from Eva. She showed up at Mom's in tears, completely shattered. I didn't ask what she said. I just wrote back, thanks. That Sunday night, Penelope finally messaged me. I know I screwed up. Please, talk to me. We can fix this. Once, that would have pulled me back without question. But now, it felt like watching someone chase a train long after it had left the platform. She hadn't noticed me slipping away. Now that I was gone, she could finally hear the silence I'd left behind. A week passed before I agreed to meet her. We chose a neutral spot, a diner on 12th. She was already seated when I arrived, hands wrapped around a mug, hair tied up, wearing that navy sweater I got her last December. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. I nodded, but didn't sit right away. Her eyes were swollen. You didn't even say goodbye. I did, I said. You just didn't hear it until I was already gone. She bit her lip. I don't even know what to say except, I'm sorry. I thought I needed something different, thought I'd find clarity, but I just lost everything. Some people don't find clarity until too late, I replied, sliding into the seat across from her. The silence that followed didn't carry tension anymore, just the weight of an ending. I broke things off with Damien, she murmured. I assumed, I said. He never meant anything. He meant enough that you risked everything for him. Her voice cracked. I never meant to lose you. You didn't lose me, I said gently. You let me go. That's not the same. She reached into her bag and took out an envelope. I wrote this last night, in case you ever wanted to understand how I ended up here. She placed it on the table. I already understand what matters, I said. I pulled my own envelope from my coat and set it beside hers. Her eyes widened. She stared at it like it was a live wire. Divorce papers? I gave a single nod. She didn't cry right away, just held the envelope like maybe it could change something if she held it long enough. When she finally found her voice, it was barely audible. Is there any chance, any version of this, where we find a way back? I rose from the booth. Maybe once, I said, but I was the only one fighting for us. Now I've finally learned to fight for myself. Tears welled in her eyes. Miles. I reached for my coat. Take care of yourself, I told her. You'll have to. Then I walked out. The door closed behind me with a gentle thud, final, quiet. She once told me I'd be happier without her, and now, I was. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you? She thought she knew whom she was betraying, that the pain would be fleeting, like the shock of a cold shower, unpleasant, but bearable. But when he vanished before dawn without a single word, she realized for the first time that silence can be louder than a scream. No scenes, no threats, no shattered plates. He simply left, taking nearly 40 years of their life with him. And so began the chase, where each of her messages drowned in his silence, and every attempt to find him became another reminder that some mistakes can't be undone. While she wandered from state to state, searching for his gaze in the faces of strangers, her own world began to collapse, first inside, then out. Illness, pain, loneliness. And him? He was building a new life, on the road, on wheels, with someone who didn't remind him of the past. Not revenge, not anger. Just a cold, resolute enough. And when she finally learned where he was, the question was no longer whether he'd come back, but whether she could survive the price of her freedom. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. Let me recount a story that changed everything for my family a little over 2 years ago. It's about a 63-year-old man who, after learning of his wife's betrayal, went from being a gentle, accommodating partner to someone who reclaimed his identity with unwavering resolve. This isn't a tale about my marriage. My husband and I have shared 14 solid, loving years, but rather about my parents, my mother, who was 59 at the time, and my father, then 63. They'd been together nearly 40 years, their relationship built on decades of shared moments, companionship, and what we all believed to be deep, mutual trust. 3 years back, they retired and relocated to Arizona to embrace a life of travel and exploration. From fall to spring, they journeyed far and wide, and during the hotter months, they'd return to Utah to spend time with us. Their new lifestyle seemed like a dream. They had a beautiful riverside house, a pristine diesel truck, and a camper that symbolized endless possibility. Their visits brought us joy, so much so that my husband even installed full RV amenities on our 16-acre property to ensure they always felt at home. On the surface, their lives looked picture-perfect, but the surface can be deceiving. In their Arizona retirement community, there was a woman named Julie. From the outset, I felt an odd discomfort around her. She was loud, impulsive, and the life of every party, traits that clashed with my mother's typically calm demeanor and preference for quiet evenings. Despite my misgivings, Mom dismissed my concerns, describing Julie as generous and spirited. The two quickly became close, and even friends who'd initially been wary of Julie eventually warmed to her wild charisma. I sensed danger, but no one paid it much mind. None of us could have imagined how devastating that friendship would become. What followed would tear our family apart, a painful reminder that betrayal and misplaced affection aren't reserved for the young. Love, or something posing as it, can become toxic at any stage of life. One evening, Mom, Julie, and another friend, Jolyn, had plans to go out. Partway through the night, Mom grew tired and decided to head home early. As always, Dad drove her home without a fuss. But something in her shifted. Back at the house, her mood darkened. She was distracted, distant. When Dad gently asked what was bothering her, she hesitated. Then, her hands shaking and eyes full of remorse, she confessed the unimaginable. She'd been having an affair with a younger man, a friend of Julie's. She called him a young stud. What began as casual flirtation during evening get-togethers had spiraled into a full-blown affair, concealed behind the clink of wine glasses and shared laughter. The secrecy had begun to erode her physically and emotionally. What came next was extraordinary. Dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't lash out or fall apart. He simply absorbed the confession with quiet strength. At 63, he unveiled a new version of himself. Stoic, composed, dignified. While Mom wept and begged for forgiveness, he remained still, like stone. That night, their nearly 40-year union unraveled. She pleaded to stay by his side, but he declined. He told her to take a shower and said they'd talk in the morning. Despite her desperate attempts to speak through the night, he said nothing more. At around 5:30 the next morning, after she'd finally fallen asleep, she woke to an empty bed. Dad was gone. So was the camper. He had packed everything and left silently during the night, slipping out the sliding door without waking her, carefully loading his essentials into the camper and disappearing without a sound. Frantic, she called him. Eventually he responded, with a brief message. He was initiating a separation, effective 6 a.m., the moment she discovered he was gone. The finality of his message broke her. When she called again, sobbing, he answered just once more. He calmly reaffirmed his decision, told her to expect contact from his attorney, and ended the conversation. That was it. No further discussion, no negotiation. Then came a stunning twist. Dad reached out to Julie's husband. He told him everything. Not long after, Julie found herself locked out of her own home. She's now staying with Julie, both of them now facing the chaos their actions had set in motion. Dad, unwavering as ever, then contacted my brother and me to explain what had happened. At first, we couldn't believe it. It felt surreal, like some twisted joke. But it was all too real, the collapse of everything we believed about our family. We cried together, shell-shocked by the scale of the loss. A week has passed since everything came to light, and nothing feels familiar anymore. Mom is shattered. She's been driving aimlessly, crossing state lines with no direction, consumed by panic and grief. She's been frantically trying to find Dad, but he's asked us to protect his peace. We know where he is, but we've kept his location to ourselves. We're torn. We stand by Dad. He did nothing to deserve this, and his request for solitude is more than fair. But watching our mother unravel, mentally and emotionally, is heartbreaking. She's a ghost of the woman we knew. At night we lie awake, wondering, do we reveal his location to ease her suffering? Or do we respect his boundaries and allow her to face the consequences of her choices? There's no easy answer. A part of me feels deeply compelled to honor Dad's request. He explicitly asked to be left alone, and disclosing his whereabouts would betray the confidence he placed in us. At the same time, there's an undeniable urgency in safeguarding Mom's well-being. One compromise we've carefully explored is giving her a general idea, just enough to ease her mind but not nearly enough to actually lead her to him, so she might feel some comfort without violating his boundaries. Even so, there's a persistent worry that even a minor misstep could shatter the already delicate connection we have with Dad. We're trying to maintain a precarious balance, caring for Mom while not overstepping the limits Dad has drawn. The emotional toll is crushing. We're stuck in the crossfire, pulled between the emotional needs of both parents. As of last night, Mom remained in the St. George area, continuing her efforts to track him down. I eventually persuaded her to come stay at our house for a few nights to recuperate. She agreed, and we're expecting her to arrive sometime later today. I'll keep updating you as things unfold. Your messages and support have meant everything to us. The past week and a half has unraveled into a series of emotionally brutal events, plunging our family into chaos. When Mom finally got to our home, it was obvious she was running on empty, physically worn out and emotionally frayed. She said she wasn't feeling well, so we encouraged her to lie down. Not long after, my youngest daughter let out a terrified scream that had me rushing toward the bedroom. I found Mom bent over in pain, frozen, and unable to move. My husband and I immediately rushed her to the ER, where the doctors quickly suspected a major infection, possibly a severe UTI. She was also extremely dehydrated, and they began treatment right away. But the test results shocked us. The root cause turned out to be a sexually transmitted disease she'd contracted during the affair. Thankfully, it was treatable with antibiotics. However, after 48 hours in the hospital, her condition didn't improve as the doctors had hoped. They began to suspect the infection might be a drug-resistant strain, something they've been encountering more often lately. They shifted her to a stronger, more intensive antibiotic regimen. After 5 excruciating days, her fever finally dropped, and her condition stabilized to the point where she could be discharged. Even so, the ordeal left her physically drained and emotionally wrecked. During her entire stay, she repeatedly asked if Dad had called or reached out in any way. He hadn't. There was nothing. No messages, no phone calls. I had been sending Dad regular updates, keeping him informed every day. Meanwhile, the rest of us stayed close to Mom, trying to offer comfort, even as her mental and emotional state continued to unravel. Now that she's back at our house, her strength is slowly returning, at least physically. But emotionally, she's struggling to keep herself afloat. She sends Dad text after text, leaves voicemail after voicemail, all of them met with silence. She's broken, confused, and desperately trying to process the end of a 40-year marriage. Eventually, her grief became unbearable, for both of us. One evening, in a moment of raw exasperation, I snapped, "This wouldn't be happening if you hadn't made that choice. You're the one who tore everything apart." The second I said it, regret hit me like a wave. I apologized immediately, but the words had already done their damage. She collapsed in tears, and despite my anger, I wrapped my arms around her. It was an awkward, tentative hug, but we clung to each other, both shattered by what had just transpired. We stayed there talking for over 2 hours. During that time, she opened up more than she ever had before. She told me the man she had been involved with was 28, a construction worker, younger than her own children. As she described the setting, the man's circle of friends, and the casual, almost careless approach they all had toward intimacy, her betrayal became even more jarring. I kept pressing for answers, desperate to understand how she allowed herself to go down that path. She was clearly uncomfortable, but I couldn't stop myself from asking. I needed something, anything, that could help me make sense of how she could hurt Dad so profoundly. Her responses were halting, full of regret, but ultimately lacking in clarity. I felt an overwhelming mix of grief and disgust. The idea that my mother had been involved in something so reckless was hard to absorb. She admitted she didn't fully understand why she allowed it to happen, only that the regret set in almost immediately after it began. As agonizing as it was to hear, her honesty brought a strange kind of relief. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the darker possibility. If she hadn't told the truth, and Dad had unknowingly contracted that infection, what then? That thought haunted me. I was stuck between acknowledging her remorse and being consumed by the horror of her actions. And even now, though she clings to the hope that Dad might one day return, the future remains a blank slate for her. But this Saturday will mark a turning point, one she doesn't yet anticipate. Dad has made up his mind. He's going to deliver the divorce papers to her in person at our home. He feels it's only right that she receives them surrounded by family rather than alone. It's a devastating decision, but one he's come to with firm resolve. The coming days will undoubtedly bring more heartbreak as we all confront the consequences of everything that's happened. It's now June 2022. More than a year has passed since I last spoke about any of this. Many have reached out, wondering what the final outcome was for my parents. So here it is. The divorce is finalized. Mom and Dad are no longer husband and wife, though even now, saying it aloud feels surreal. Dad, a man who has always lived by his principles, ultimately couldn't find it in himself to forgive. After they separated, their only communication was through legal channels. His decision to sever ties completely was immediate and unwavering, a reflection of just how deeply he'd been hurt. And yet, despite the pain, he didn't abandon her. Financially, he ensured she'd be okay. The divorce settlement was more than fair, some might even call it generous, but their emotional connection is gone, irreparably broken. Putting this into words isn't easy, but I've come to understand why my father was so deeply wounded that he chose to walk away. Meanwhile, my mother now resides in a small, unpretentious apartment just minutes from where I live. The vibrant life they once shared near the Arizona River, filled with boats, jet skis, and the hum of a camper, has faded into memory. In its place is a quiet, subdued town where she lives near me, her daughter. It's a stark contrast to the dynamic lifestyle she once embraced. and it now stands as a poignant reminder of all she lost in exchange for a fleeting, reckless moment of passion, one that ultimately collapsed into betrayal and enduring sorrow. The aftermath of the divorce left each of them changed in drastically different ways. For my mother, the consequences came swiftly and harshly. Not long after the separation, her health took a steep dive. She ended up in the hospital suffering from bronchitis, dehydration, poor nutrition, and a deep depression that seemed to consume her. She remained under observation for 3 days, and though she received initial relief and began a regimen of psychiatric medication, her doctors raised concerns that she might have developed lupus. They believed it could have been triggered by the overwhelming emotional and physical stress of the breakup. Her physician emphasized the destructive impact that sustained stress can have on the immune system, sometimes manifesting as lupus-like conditions. He urged her to prioritize emotional healing and to take steps to rebuild her immune strength. The road to recovery has been long and unpredictable. While she has made some progress, she's no longer the woman I once knew. The ordeal has reshaped her, both mentally and physically, leaving behind a lingering reminder of how far-reaching the consequences of one impulsive choice can be. Once a stable and resilient figure in our family, she now seems fragile and worn down. Through a stroke of luck and the kindness of a friend in management, I was able to help her land a job at a craft store. That position has added some much-needed routine to her life, and possibly a glimmer of purpose. She's doing well in that role, gradually earning admiration for her consistency and diligence. Yet the truth remains, her former life is gone. Today, she relies on daily medications and contends with persistent anxiety. Her modest apartment near me quietly echoes the cost she continues to bear. And so, with a heavy heart, I shift the focus to my father. He has embraced a life on the move, finding solace in the freedom that comes with a home on wheels. Over the past 6 months, he has developed a connection with a woman that seems to be deepening into something meaningful. I've encouraged him to take his time, especially given how recent the divorce still feels, but he seems genuinely content. His new companion is a young travel vlogger with a zest for adventure, and their shared love for exploration has drawn them closer. They've spent months crisscrossing the country together, camping along the way. Despite the obvious age difference, there's a real sense of sincerity in their relationship. Dad has made it clear to both my brother and me that he has no interest in remarrying. His partner, who also went through a difficult divorce, shares that sentiment. Neither of them seeks another formal commitment. What binds them now is a mutual passion for nature, discovery, and the open road. I can't overstate how much your empathy and thoughtful advice have meant during this time. Your kindness has been a true source of comfort. As a daughter striving to find balance amid all these changes, I share this reflection with cautious hope. Healing is still ongoing, but the path ahead holds potential for peace. And now, I'm left with a question that continues to stir something deep within me. If you were in my father's place, could you forgive a lifelong partner for a sudden act of infidelity? Would you be able to see it as a tragic misstep in an otherwise loving marriage? Or would that one breach of trust overshadow everything that came before? The emotional fallout of betrayal, how it influences forgiveness, lingering anger, and the choices we make, remains a profound and enduring question, one that challenges us to look inward. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend, and if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.